main point is that, or the problem with Carr is that he uses a lot of his own experience in his writing to make his point, but really all he does is introduce his points that way. One thing about Carr is that he has a lot of research, and I've looked at some of his bibliography or references or whatever you want to call it, and they're legitimate, academic, peer-reviewed articles in which people who, and I know some of these people who would expect to see hypertext and these online communities result in better learning, and they're actually finding that they don't. Now, the interesting thing is a lot of these studies then go on to explain away why they don't, and talk about things like, well, we're not used to it, people haven't been using hypertext long enough, and things like that, which may or may not be the case. But one thing I want to notice, and this goes back to Kuhn, who wrote Structure of Scientific Revolutions, he notes that people who... Oh, stopping quick. Sorry. He notes that scientists work within certain paradigms, and those paradigms come complete with past experience, past knowledge, past research, as well as beliefs about how things work. And so these people who are explaining, and what happens is that when an anomaly presents itself, something that doesn't quite fit with the paradigm, the people who discover the anomaly or notice the anomaly usually start off by trying to explain it away and saying that's an aberration in the data or things like that, which is fine. And I'm not saying that the people who are trying to explain away the negative effects of hypertext are wrong in what they're doing, but we have to consider that perhaps, considering the plethora of resources that Carr is bringing into his argument, that perhaps hypertexting does have a negative impact on learning and thinking. And I'm not saying it only has a negative effect on thinking and learning. What I'm saying is that we have to consider that it does have a negative effect as well as a positive effect. And so now the question becomes, what do we want to try and conserve about our old ways of thinking, and what do we want to gain from our new ways of thinking, and in hopes that if we identify the negatives, the hope is that we aren't as affected by the negative as much. I don't think we can ever eliminate it completely, and so there's some things that we just have to say we're willing to live with that. Now, so going back to the link that a friend of mine forwarded me, I like that he's trying to get me to think out, both sides of the argument, things like that, which I really appreciate. But this other person is writing is purely using their own experience. They are not citing any sources. They are not bringing up any empirical research and things like that. So that's problematic. It's fine to not like Carr's argument, but you got to support yourself as far as not liking Carr's argument. You can't just say you don't like it based on intuition, because that gets us in all kinds of trouble. But it is a place to start. So let's start doing that research. Let's see what happens. Anyways, and then I have another friend who through some dialogue that we've had on my blog, he and I have come to the conclusion that hypertext is good, just in the same way that citing your sources in academic writing is good, but putting it in the middle of your writing, in your exposition, whatever you want to call it, is what encourages your reader to actually leave your thought, break mental engagement with your thinking, and go explore other people's thinking, which is not a bad thing. You want them to do that because you want them to see that there's support out there for your way of thinking. But the problem is that when you put a link at the end, let's say one of your words you highlight and make into a link, that person stops reading where they're at right there, if they're interested in following that link, and goes read something else, and then comes back to your piece, which maybe, if they're diligent, go back and reread what you started with to better understand it. But most people are just going to continue on, and because they're not linking all of your concepts together in the manner that you intended as you wrote them, and now I'm assuming that you're writing in a very meaningful and purposeful way, they're not able to take your whole argument and put it together as a coherent whole. Instead, they're getting it piecemeal, and that can cause problems for their understanding. It can cause problems for the clarity of your case. And so what we kind of, a compromise that we suggested, and I'm not saying this is the fix by any means, but a compromise we suggested is to have footnotes and then at the bottom of the page you have your links. And so if somebody wants to know more about a specific information, they actually have to scroll down to the bottom of your argument and then click on the links. And what's more likely to happen, as I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, please respond, what I believe will happen is that people will finish reading your entire piece and then go explore the links. Now, a variation of that would be to post your links at the beginning of your piece and say, here's the influence on this, what I'm about to write. Post the links, people can go explore the links and actually be set up to understand your argument as a whole. I don't think that'll work, because I think people will end up just not reading your piece and just exploring the links. So my feeling, and then I'm going to start trying on my blog, is to put the links at the end with just footnotes pointing towards the links in the actual text. So there's some thoughts on hypertexting, Nicholas Carr, and maybe some compromises. I don't think we should be so quick to dismiss Carr's argument, but at the same time, I think Carr's argument, the way he wrote it, makes it sound like it's less academic than it is, or less robust than it is. And I also think that the way he wrote it also doesn't go to the major crux of the matter. He's focusing too much on the little minor shifts in thinking, which are happening anyways. And what I think he probably should focus on, and again, maybe he does, should be focusing on is when they follow the links, what does that do to their ability to follow an argument on the original text that they're reading?